Okay, hello, folks. Welcome to the first inaugural Magento Association Podcast. My name is Matt Harris. Mathias Schreiber is on with us, the head of Magento Association, our faithful leader. And
Oh, well.
future podcasts will have different hosts, different guests, but we're going to kick this one off with the man himself and find out about Magento Association and all things Magento. So, welcome.
Thank you.
So, Matthias, let's go back in time just a second and talk about how we got to where we are now with Magento as a platform and as a brand and
All
its
right.
relationship with Adobe. If you can, I know
A
that's a lot.
brief
I know.
history.
All right.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
got it. Got it.
Okay. Thanks.
So the gist of it is that that Adobe acquired Magento Inc., including all the trademarks and the entire brand. And since then, Adobe is on the one hand using it as a base platform to create their commercial e-commerce offering, which is Adobe Commerce. But at the same time, they kept the Magento core code base open source, so people can use it. Adobe builds on top of it, does a heck of a lot of work in regards to maintenance, takes care of all the security related issues that come up. And then the really boring stuff, don't want to get too technical, but PHP compatibility updates is something where every developer just goes like, oh. And luckily, our trusty folks at Adobe are taking care of those things for us, and they all give that back to the community. At the same time, the original trademark of Magento was slowly phased out and moved over into Adobe Commerce. That was when you look at it like with the commercial side of it. And what we have now is Magento Open Source. That's like the brand that we as Magento Association are allowed to use and to promote Magento as a code base that people can build their e-commerce success upon, pretty much. And there's a couple trademarks more, like Meet Magento. That's a big one. That's the registered trademark of the entire event series. And Adobe licensed that to us at Magento Association, so we can sub-license it to all the local organizers that run Meet Magento in their countries or in their region, pretty much. So that's like the super short version, and we're in charge of making sure all these things happen. Everything stays within the legal bounds, because that's a little bit tricky. Also, with Adobe being a publicly traded company, there's a couple rules that apply that didn't apply in the past, and that's what we also work together with Adobe and the community. Part of it is it's like couples therapy,
Yeah.
Explain this perspective, explain that perspective. Ideally, both parties understand each other better afterwards.
And how long did those licensing agreements last?
Currently, indefinitely. So we don't have like a deadline.
It doesn't expire.
Not by the current agreement. Where we have like a clause in there that we are going to revisit the agreement, see if it needs adjustment. But that seems like a default clause
Right.
in a contract. One small thing also to mention is that Adobe explicitly tasked Magento Association with marketing Magento to Magento Open Source, I should say, to small and mid-sized merchants.
Okay.
By Adobe's definition. So
Right.
there might be perspective to that, right? So I have a 2-year-old. For her, like, I'm tall. Right. To me, if I look at a giraffe, it's like, hey, that's tall, right? So it's always a matter of perspective that comes in. But I think it's a very good sign that Adobe basically says, hey, market this, please.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think the standards for what is medium and what is enterprise in Europe and in America are different too.
If I'm not mistaken, there was actually a number flying around. So I think the lower bound for Adobe was something along the lines of $100,000 in annual licensing fees. So it's not revenue based or profit based or whatever. It's
Mhm.
basically just like how much does the merchant spend with Adobe in terms of licensing fees
Right.
annually. So that was like the break off point. And
Right.
that of course, when initially it was said like all the small and medium businesses, there was quite some response from the
Yeah.
community because they thought, it's only for the small stuff. But then when those numbers came around, everybody was like, what? That's like twice the size of my big
Yeah.
clients. And
Yeah.
suddenly everything got put into
Yeah.
perspective again. And personally, I think we're in a really good spot, especially with the offerings that Adobe has in the market in general. And I
Mhm.
think that Magento Open Source fits really neatly into
Yeah.
what's it called, opportunity gap,
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
I think it's also interesting because there's co-stewardship of the platform. There's Adobe stewardship, and then there's the open source community stewardship of the platform. And they both kind of benefit each other. And they're both
Absolutely.
taking on a lot of responsibility. So like if you're, you know, they're like it's like having a trade partner. You're buying this from me and we're buying this from you, and we're both benefiting, and neither one wants to see that partnership fall away. I think particularly having Adobe there to secure those enterprise contracts gives a lot of validity to the platform itself. You're like,
Absolutely.
look at this incredible stuff that's been built on this platform. This is not some fly by night open source platform. This thing has got durability. It's been around for a while. And I think Adobe's stamp of approval gives that credibility so that the rest of us that want to build on open source and that we have the size of clients that we're going after,
Yeah.
they're not going to question the platform. Yeah, this is plus now it's been around for a long time. I think,
Sure. I mean,
yeah,
second decade.
second decade,
And
yeah.
we had a conversation in London a week ago where somebody basically said like, hey, also keep in mind the amount of legal insurance that's backing Magento. You
Mhm,
really don't want to mess something up in the code base. So things might not evolve like super uber fast,
mhm,
but it's solid. It's rock solid. And
yeah,
that's I think, I mean, I personally I would rather take like a rock solid platform over one that gives me funky new buttons every other week.
mhm, yeah. And I do think there's a kind of, trend line on technology evolution, right? Some stuff like the smartphone, it comes into the marketplace, it takes off really fast. There's a fast adoption rate, and there's actually a really fast ramp up on the evolution of that technology. And then it kind of levels off. Like the iPhone really hasn't changed much in 10 years, right?
No,
But it changed everything for a few years. And I think like what we're asking out of an e-commerce platform has started to kind of reach that curve where we know what we need it to do. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be additional evolutionary requirements, like AI is going to change everything, obviously, but I think the stability factor is something that we're now thinking about that maybe we weren't thinking about, 15 years
no,
ago.
absolutely. And I think the biggest change. I mean, my original background in tech is coming from content management systems,
Mhm,
which was like a big thing 96 ish till the early 2000s. That's
mhm,
when it was the hot new stuff. And pretty much the same with e-commerce. And both content management system as well as e-commerce is now commodity. It's not a
mhm.
question, do we do this? It's how do we do this? So this
Right.
this changed a lot. And I, I I'm pretty sure there's studies out there showing like how many businesses that have something to do with anything trade do have e-commerce platforms. And I think that number just goes up. But of course, it saturates at a certain point
Mhm,
because there's only that many merchants, and at a certain point they all needed like digital stores. Fine.
mhm.
And I think this leveling off is not that there's. I mean, I don't think e-commerce is going away. Can you imagine not being able to buy anything online? Would freak me out. I bought concert tickets for my step kid today. I was like,
Mhm.
I don't want to go to a store. I don't have
Yeah.
time for that. I need to get
I
in the car, drive downtown, stand in line. I don't want to do that.
I wouldn't even know where to go to buy it. I mean, you
Well,
can't go to the you can go
15
to
years
the
ago, you would have known.
Yeah, no, you go to the venue, you'd have to drive by the venue, go to the little
Yep.
kiosk, and but yeah, that's true. Um, I also think that you know, there's probably room for about a handful of legitimate players. Now there'll be specialized platforms in the e-commerce space, but I think not that I have a crystal ball, but I think 10 years from now we'll probably be talking about the same platforms that take up the majority of the,
Yeah. Yeah. I think so.
yeah,
I
I
would,
think
I
so.
would, I would agree. I mean, it would need like massive disruption in the e-commerce space because the I wouldn't necessarily say that the pie remains the same size, but the slices are kind of
Yeah,
divided. That would be like my analogy here. That it's
yeah,
that it's it, I don't see a super hot new topping coming up.
no, yeah. I also, I think that what merchants are going to be looking at is particularly, we do a lot of B2B work. And so if you're doing distribution or wholesale, margins are thin. Everyone's trying to find efficiency gains,
Mhm.
um, not just through automation, to reduce like workload and create efficiencies that way, but also looking to minimize the take rate of the tech stack that they're working with.
Sure.
And I think we're going to see some pressure there over the next few years. That's what I'm anticipating, at least. And I also think that, you know, open source has a real strong position when it comes
Absolutely.
to merchants being able to control their expenses. Let's just
And also if we take a look at something like emerging markets, I personally think that open source is like can be a global equalizer.
say.
So we did projects with governments of Central African countries, and they basically said, "Hey, we don't want to spend like $20 million in taxpayers' money
Hmm.
just for a software license, and then we have like 2 DVDs and a printed manual, and then we need to start working."
Yeah,
Right? So they basically said, "No, we want to do it. We want to build it on open source, and we want to start with that and not waste taxpayer money,
yeah,
pretty much, while still having 100% sovereignty."
yeah.
If you want it. I mean, you can go with an agency. There's so many great for the agencies out there. That's absolutely great. Um, but if if things really go south, you still can change the code, and
Hmm.
you're allowed to. That's what a lot of people like misinterpret in the licenses. When I used to work at a big tech company, we had access to Microsoft source code. Awesome.
Hmm.
But we were not allowed to change it.
Right.
That's a difference. So that's where I really think open source has a lot of strong points.
Yeah. I think there's two big factors that open source, huge value propositions. You shorten the gap between the developer and what a merchant might need. So you can get an immediate response
Sure.
instead of right. So you can get customizations that meet a certain niche without having to wait in line on somebody's, roadmap for that technology. You can always create an extension on your own. You can do that with apps and other platforms, et cetera. But I think that relationship between the users and the merchants and the developers is really short. Like it's almost like direct contact, which I think
It's
is great.
fast. Yeah.
Yeah. The other is just owning your data and your technology and data privacy, right? Like if
This
I
is
think what's happening in the future with AI, I'm like, well, you better own your data, right?
well.
Let's
There's I love the AI stuff. At the same time, it freaks me out.
yeah, totally.
Because ultimately what will happen is as soon as we start letting AI do like business based decisions, the bigger the AI platform is, the more equal, or not equal, but it will start making the same decisions for every single merchant on the platform.
Right,
Ultimately,
right.
and there was a test in the music industry where they were basically saying, okay, let's try and create songs from AI based on what's currently playing in pop, and they did like at a super insane rate. I think it was like 150 songs per second, something along those. Really real computing power. and then fed back the result of the AI songs into the machine learning algorithms.
Mhm.
And I think after the real world projection would be 20, 25 years, it started creating the same song over and over and over and over and over. So this is a lot of people go like, AI is so creative. No, it's not. AI is
No,
just
it's not.
blazingly fast at reproducing what somebody else
Yeah.
did.
Humans are
So,
creative. Yeah,
yep.
I don't want to get off topic, but I was just reading
Sorry.
a long article. No. I'm gonna get off topic. That's how I led into that. I just read this long article about how AI has this diminishing effect on human creativity, and then they came out the other side of the article, and they're like, it's actually a reflection point on the creativity of humans. If you look at the generation of content and stuff from AI, it's all obviously human derivative, particularly like language and visuals and like where else would it be getting it? But then you can see its deficits. And then from those deficits, like you were saying, it gives you hope for the creativity of man, right? You're
Indeed.
like,
Yeah.
oh, we still have capabilities here. Like we still have a role to play. Um, so not to get way off topic, but these are the things I think about in my free time, right? Like when I'm away from work. I think getting back to data privacy, what we were talking about, I think there's a future. Now, I would argue that AI should be open source. I think OpenAI was supposed to be, and now it's like I don't really know what the rules are around that. I think there should be a movement that tries to get public access to these um, this machine learning and these neural nets so that the community can play and it's not just all owned by these big corporations.
Yeah, society as a whole. I mean, the biggest issue is data sets, right? The,
Right.
the amount of data you need to train your own model. I mean, you can fire up your own LLM locally,
Right.
right? But getting enough data to train it, that's pretty much like that's the hard part.
Mhm.
Even though what I would love to see if society could get pre-trained models based on public knowledge, that
Right.
seems like a fair deal in my eyes, right?
Yeah, like a library. Like a library is
Yeah.
it's the common good, right?
Yeah.
The information that's in there should be publicly accessed, and we
But
should be able to train our own AI models.
being over
But
here in Europe where the bandwidth isn't that high, I don't want to download like a 2 terabyte update every
right.
other week. And then Apple would love it because I need to get the MacBook with the big disk. Yeah. No, but
But
it's true.
back to data privacy for merchants though, it's like I've been doing business for 10 years or 20 years or 30 years, and I have 10 years of customer data. I have 10 years of order history. I have 10 years of like metrics that are in my marketing data. I have patterns that are there. I think ownership of that data, I think is critical if you want to build an intelligent business moving forward. And you should be able to own that. Like your customer data and your order data and the history of your business and your business metrics, that should be your private property. That should be the equity that you're building in that business, and you should own it.
I
And
agree. Yeah.
yeah,
And I completely agree with that part. But there's also things to consider. It's like, so what happens if you want to move the data?
right.
Can you? Right?
That's true.
This is a lot of the stuff. Oh, you train your own AI model in your own data lake. Yeah, awesome. But if I want to move, can I keep it? Or did I
Yeah,
just lend it for you to train somebody else's model? You know,
yeah.
that's also something. But I love data sovereignty. I think it's
Mhm,
really important because things can go wrong with a government that
mhm,
just starts doing weird things.
mhm,
Um, and uh, and I mean, history history is very clear on that bad things can happen. Um, but also you can optimize things based
mhm,
on your specific store that you need to run, like on a data level.
mhm,
Um, your If everything goes south, you can still like you can freeze the current state, and there's no there's no external deadlines being pushed down your throat. Pretty
Mm-hmm.
much, like this is also what I consider really, 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 really important. And I had a customer a couple years back. And there was like a merger up the horizon, and but they needed to do like one of those security updates, and they basically said, hey, what happens if we harden the servers so we can just postpone the update, because after the acquisition and the merger we will rebuild anything anyways. So they tried to save that money in that time frame. With open source, at least you can do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I always advocate, always keep your software up to date. That's a no-brainer. However, there's small exceptions, and they happen very, very rarely. But if you're affected by such an exception, it's a good thing that you can do something about it,
Yeah.
rather than being, with your back to the wall.
Yeah.
And
Well, I mean, I know a lot of businesses that are still running on 30-year-old on-premise software.
AS400.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they have avoided the disruption of replatforming to something that's cloud-based. And so those systems are frozen because there is really no path forward. So they're frozen in time, but the businesses are still running. I think
Yeah,
people in the tech world need to also realize that, this idea of digital transformation is great conceptually, but when you get into the dollars and cents and reality of running a business that needs to maintain profitability, you have to go about this very, very carefully. You know,
yeah, sure.
conceptually, okay, great. Yeah, we'd love to have all of our data in the cloud and we need to keep versions updated, continually. That's the ideal state. But sometimes that gap analysis is really scary. Current state to future
But
state.
I mean, technically speaking, if we really break it down to like its bare core, then cloud just means somebody else does the updates for me.
That's right.
They don't magically happen.
Yeah.
They still do happen with all the bells and whistles that come with
Yeah.
updates. Stuff might break,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so but like I said, I like the idea of like fast and rolling upgrades.
Hmm.
Um, However, it comes with a downside. Like most things come with some sort of trade-off
Totally.
ultimately. And you
Yeah.
just have to be, and what I like is if I can choose which trade-off that would be.
I want to get back to something you said before
Yeah.
about the AI bot that's trying to create music and ends up making the same song over again, which I find hilarious. But it got me thinking like about data autonomy and privacy and owning your own data set and owning your own technology and having the ability to adapt your technology. To me, that ability and that autonomy allows you to be creative as a business. And the differentiator for businesses in the future, potentially, if we're using your AI metaphor as an example, will be those differentiators. Like, how can you be creative with your business? And I think your data is how you're massaging your business and
Yeah.
interacting. It's all pretty much data at some point. So
What will
I
happen is I can loop back around to the music and like close the circle. Um, if you work with your data set, you develop your style,
Mhm,
because you train your models with your data, with your customers, with how your business operates.
right,
That's where I see like huge opportunity, that
yeah,
you can basically utilize AI with a subset of how your business operates, rather than it being influenced from how, I don't know, a million other businesses operate, but they all feed
mhm,
into the same data set, because ultimately
yeah,
everything comes to the same conclusion. That
yeah,
would be bad, because you want to set yourself apart.
yeah. I also think that one of the market assumptions about open source is that it's complex, it's expensive, and it's time consuming to build on. I think that's one of the perceptions versus SaaS, right? Let's just say
Yeah.
that would be one of the trade offs. But I think what the market hasn't done, I think there was a lot of rush to build particularly during COVID, is what the market didn't look at necessarily, or some parts of the market, is the long term expense. Let's say the 5-year cost of ownership. And what I like about now, obviously, SaaS has its role. I'm not trying to make some kind of dig on SaaS, But what I like about the open source model is not just the data privacy, um, but there's an expense component that you can move up and down as you go. And you could do 1 year where you just create a current state where you're like, all right, we're just going to ride out on this.
Yep.
We're going to minimize this expense because we're going to work on other stuff, parts of our business, right? Or we're going to try to increase our profitability or whatever. And then maybe 2 years down the road, you do another sprint. But the cost of that platform is not locked in through a licensing fee. You have a lot of control, let's just say,
Yeah.
over how much that
Well,
platform,
all of it.
and then you can move it. You're like, oh, I don't
Yeah.
I don't agree with this hosting contract. I want to, so you can also move it. It's portable. And I think that's something that a lot of, businesses need to consider. Like, is this something that you want to, is this important enough to your business that you want to be able to kind of own it and control it?
Absolutely. I mean, the and it's not a silver bullet, right? So
Right.
going like open source, self-hosted is the correct way. That doesn't make sense. It depends on the requirements that you have. Also, where are you in your business journey right now?
Yeah.
With the business, like what's happening? And one of the big mistakes that I often see people do when they think about the digital strategy is they have all those scenarios if stuff goes wrong.
Yeah.
What happens if everything goes better than right?
Yeah.
Then what? Can you
Yeah.
scale? Does it work? Because if you're scaling your business, the last thing you want to think about is changing platforms. Because it's like you scale the business, you have 5 problems, replatforming, now you have 7.
Yeah.
And and this
Yeah.
would be something worth noting. And at the same time, it's how would you call it? The there is some elegance to starting small and growing with the platform,
Mhm.
and being able to hold back a level of investment, which is funnily enough how the world used to operate for hundreds of years.
Mhm.
And now it's like, oh, it's really good that we can also do that. It's like, no, we always could do that. It's just that everybody else tries to sell you this. I mean, it's the restaurant business, isn't it?
Mhm.
Everybody can cook at home, but if you want convenience and you don't want to, stand in the kitchen and you don't want to do the dishes and all those
Mhm.
kind of things, you go to a restaurant. Problem, 10 times as expensive.
Right.
There's also just like a trade-off kind of thing
Mhm.
that you need to do. Of course, what you can do is you can open source with an agency. I think the equivalent would be like a private chef in the house, right? So then you
Yeah.
have someone you can still.
Yeah.
It's your kitchen.
It's your food.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So those things, you're not stuck to a menu that somebody else dictates.
Yeah.
And if this year's, I don't know, this week's there's no chicken, then well, no chicken for you.
Mhm.
That's what happens when they take APIs away. The chicken API comparison. That's
Yeah,
a good
and
one.
guess what? You can fire the chef and get another one, right? You
True.
still have the kitchen, you still have the food, you still
Yep.
own the house.
Yep.
You're just getting a different chef, right?
Yeah. All the
As
pans, all the pots, all yours. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little harder to change restaurants if, like, that's the only restaurant, right? Like,
True.
right, yeah. That if that metaphor continues to work there, I think it does. I also
Even though I
yeah.
think we're slowly getting off track here.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think one of the things that so back to Magento, the Magento Association open source software. I think one thing that's been proven out, because I've been in this like 30 years now in the kind of digital space. I started building websites in 1995. Um, is that the unpredictable is going to happen. There's going to be something that we're going to want or need that we can't anticipate yet. So this idea of kind of cultivating a solution that has ultimate adaptability is also something that I think is smart. And I
Yeah.
think time has shown that, like you said, you don't want to re-platform all over again. And you also don't want to get stuck. Like, you don't want to be locked into something.
Yeah.
And I think
It's
that's
dangerous
another
for
huge advantage for open source.
yeah. Completely agree. That's why I'm so passionate about it. That's why I try my very best to keep Magento open source flourishing and thriving and
Yeah.
keep it moving forward.
Because I think it helps businesses. And I think, if they didn't have that as an option, like I think SaaS helps businesses too, but I think having open source is an option. The other thing I love about open source is that it is incredibly durable and that there's not a profit motive that can necessarily make or break the platform. Like the
Or just
community decides if it continues to thrive, not some quarterly profit metric,
and
right?
there's been really scary cases where open source platforms decided, hey, let's go down the full monetization route.
Mm-hmm.
Venture capitalists came in, and suddenly the owners were like, yeah, but I don't want to do that. And, they said, and
Yeah,
I was in the boardroom at such a meeting when some guy in a suit leaned over, but it's not your
yeah,
company anymore.
right.
And I was like, wow, that
Yeah,
was scary.
yeah.
So this
And
is
I,
this
I think from like Adobe's standpoint, because like the beautiful thing about open source is its durability. It kind of has this organic way of evolving. It meets merchants' needs as they come in, and that Adobe has that as a foundation. What like an incredible foundation for a corporation to have as
sure.
the base for their enterprise software because they know they're going to stay current. That open source core keeps them current. And in
Yep.
addition to everything else they're doing, but I think you and I both have been around long enough to see how closed systems can kind of like just trail off and then there's abandonment and then it just kind of dies
Yeah.
because it's not staying fresh. You don't have a community of people keeping it fresh.
We talked earlier about like AS400s, right?
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that there's so many ERP systems came and went, and the really big business still run on an AS400. Why? Because they own that piece of equipment plus the code that's on there.
Right.
That's why they're still running. And the equivalent to open source is that it's not that far off.
It's not. It's not that
It,
far off. No, I mean you could, honestly, if you have a really fast internet connection, you could be running a Magento store in your bedroom.
yeah,
You know?
sure.
Yeah. For
From
free.
from from your local laptop, not a
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. The Magento Association, let's get back to the value of the Magento Association. Like, what's the core tenants, value? What is Magento Association doing for the community, right? That is needed, let's just say, by the community.
First off, we are the liaison with Adobe. We sit together with the management team, with the product team, with the engineers. Um, we we made Adobe realize that keeping it open source is a good idea because there was
Mm,
no contractual obligation to do so. Um, but I'm so grateful that people at Adobe like got the message and worked around it because I mean, can you imagine the sales pitch within Adobe's legal department? Hey, we're going to have a guy. We don't know his name, only his GitHub username, which is leadroxor77. And he will put code into the code base of all our clients that we have. And we have absolutely no way of suing him. Sound good? Right? And I'm certain that the people within Adobe who pushed this forward went through they did like big leaps to do to make sure that it stays open source. So this
mm,
is like number one. Number two is we're charged with marketing Magento. We are like the only official source to do Magento open source marketing.
mhm,
Um, and we keep the events alive because if you just run a Meet Magento event without proper licensing, Adobe's legal team will come after you. And
mhm.
this is something that I would really also like to clear up because this is not Adobe being like ill-intended. This is how copyright law works. If
Mhm.
somebody uses your trademark, you have to enforce it because otherwise you lose the trademark. That's how
Yeah.
it works globally. So there's a lot of people that, well, somebody came after me just because I used their name. So yeah, because they have to, it's not because they want to, right? That's what a lot of people misunderstand. And so we take care of that licensing. And I always try to keep people like in a good mood. Works like 95% of the time, I suppose. But Also, one thing that we do is we are currently working out a merchant membership because we really want to have merchants on the table, make sure their voice is heard, not filtered through an agency. We want to do things like merchant roundtables where just merchants can start exchanging like common challenges or great ideas, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much at the core of what we do.
Yeah. So,
Oh, and code contributions, obviously, yeah, but
yeah.
that one went for granted in my head. Sorry.
So, I have a question. When can you and when can't you advertise yourself as a Magento agency?
Well, on paper, you can say I'm a Magento agency, right? You go on the interwebs, you download the thing, and then you say, "Yeah, I'm a professional because I professionally hit the download button." You can do that. Um, However, what we're working on right now as Magento Association is to have an independent source of people that call themselves Magento experts. But we will be doing like regular feedback circles with the clients. That's in the planning stages, so that we can like root out bad apples. Um, while at the same time making sure that because sometimes there's just friction between an agency and a merchant. I want to mediate that first, figure out okay what's actually going on. Like, do we have a conceptual problem here, or is it more like we both had a bad day situation?
Mm-hmm.
Because we need to, in order to keep Magento thriving and moving forward, we cannot allow like low quality implementations.
Right.
With great power, great responsibility. Here's the movie quote. Um, but it actually holds true, right? So because you can customize everything within Magento, you can also like break a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And what's the old saying? Works on my machine might not work with like I don't know,
Yeah.
150,000 orders a day.
I think it's
To
a
make sure.
challenge in the marketplace, honestly. I think the Adobe Commerce versus Magento Open Source and the relationship, I think us, in the Magento Association and in the industry understand, but I think that the average merchant doesn't get it.
Yeah, that's also something where we're working together with Adobe to basically show their three-pillared approach that they
Mm-hmm.
have with
Mm-hmm.
with full-blown SaaS, only app builder, only API usage on one end of the spectrum, then Adobe Commerce, what is it? I think it's called Cloud. Is it Cloud?
No,
The
it's
the
Adobe Commerce as a cloud service.
Yeah, I think
The
that's
SaaS
the one.
platform you're talking about?
No. The SaaS thing is like the pure SaaS, but then there's basically like you have a Magento store or not a Magento store, you have an Adobe Commerce store, and you can do a certain set of customization. So you have access to the PHP code, but you can also use App Builder for that. And the third pillar is Magento Open Source, purely all yours. So these are like the three service offerings. And we're currently working together with Adobe to get the whole communication out, both in our name and in the name of Adobe.
You're not talking about on-prem.
Yeah, but on-prem, because you can also get it like hosted with Adobe, right? And
Just
I'm
on
not.
the
I would need to look it up, but of course Adobe Commerce on premise, your hardware, their software, right?
right.
And then there was like their software, their servers, but you can still customize it. And that wasn't
Right.
on-prem. That had like a different name. I
Yeah.
don't
Well,
have it like.
and cloud has a different Adobe Commerce Cloud has a rules about code submissions.
Yeah.
That don't necessarily apply to. Anyway, whatever. Again, it's confusing, right? You're like, it's a challenge. Let's just say it's a challenge to
We're
get.
trying to solve that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hence the podcast, right? Gets this information out there. Okay, so Matthias, I think we're going to kind of wrap this up because I know from past experience, we want to keep these under an hour kind of ish. But to summarize, the Magento Association, is there anything you want to say in closing? Like, come join the association, or this is why it's good for merchants, or
Well, of course. Well, mainly, one thing that we didn't get to touch on was this is all a non-profit, right? So we rely on members. So if you make any money with Magento, consider becoming a member. Strongly recommend that, so we can move forward on our mission.
Mhm.
This is currently we have a lot of volunteers, but legally speaking, this is a 2-person operation.
Right.
And we're scraping on the 60-hour weeks right now,
Yeah.
very much to the dismay of my wife and kids, but it's got to be done right now. And same goes for merchants, right? So if you're an
Yeah.
agency, if you're a merchant, consider becoming a member. We highly appreciate it. We make sure that the platform you work with, grew with, continues to
Yeah.
exist pretty much. And of course, technology partners. If you have, I don't know, if you do shipping or taxes or insurances in checkout, I don't know, whatever, so checkout solutions, a million things that people do in e-commerce, consider partnering up to make sure that all the Magento open source stores out there can use your integration.
Yeah.
Right. So that's always something good to have, and we just want to do so much more, but we're kind of limited by the amount of people we can currently employ.
Mhm.
But we all have great plans. The board has great plans of great things we want to do, like hire full-time developers, for example, that just
Mhm.
increase the throughput in the code, build new functionality, those things. We would like an event manager that makes sure that we have merchant roundtables and agency roundtables all around the globe. But we somehow got
Yeah.
to pay people to get
Yeah.
that going.
Yeah. There's
But it's a community effort,
yeah.
right? So
Well, just like
we do a
open
lot for the
source.
community.
Yeah. Just like the software is a community effort, like open
Yeah,
source.
true.
So, in terms of the podcast, I think if people are listening to this, what you can expect in the future is that we're going to bring stories to the podcast of people doing good work. We want to hear stories about merchants that have been successfully running on Magento or Adobe Commerce or this platform for years. We want to hear from agencies that have done interesting stuff, done some customizations. So we want to hear about the wins and the value, and those kinds of stories. I think are going to help, you know, build the community, maintain the community, nourish the community, and help the community thrive. And I think stories are kind of foundational to how we understand our role in the world. And I think that's what this podcast is about, understanding what the open source and Magento commerce, Magento Open Source.
Gotcha.
There you go. So anyway, I'll stop talking because I'm not doing a great job. But anyway, I
It's fine.
appreciate I appreciate you everything you do. I appreciate the Magento
Very welcome.
Association. I'm proud to be a member of it, and look forward to seeing you around. And if you guys are listening to this podcast, we'll have more notes coming. How to follow, how to listen. So look out for that. But we're just getting this first one off. So thank
I think
you.
it went well.
I think it went great. There's a million things that we could talk about that I had to steer us back because I'm like, oh man,
I'm sorry.
yeah, no, I'm like, God, we should, we'll get
Maybe
together.
we
Yeah,
should quarterly Matt and Matt kind of thing, and then
yeah,
just no agenda, just we.
yeah. We can just wander off into whatever. Yeah. All right, man. Thanks a
All right.
lot.
Hey,
All
you're
right.
very welcome. Thanks for having
All
me.
right. Cheers.